I'm now driving on the spectacular Sustenpass in Switzerland. It is really a joy to drive on such a bendy mountain road. But I do not think that driving a so-called kei car would be the right choice on such a road, or would it?
Keiji Dosha is Japanese and means light automobile. It is mostly known as kei car, the Japanese microcar. The kei car category was created by the Japanese government in 1949.
Since it was just after World War II, they had the same thoughts in Europe. So European countries started to develop small affordable cars to mobilize the crowd. I mean the crowd, not the crowds.
In Europe, there was already a long history in microcars. You had the voiturette in the late 19th century, followed by the cycle cars mainly until the late 1920s.
Microcars became popular after World War II, when motorcycle transport was commonly used. Better weather protection wasn't a bad idea in a country like England, when you only needed a motorcycle license to drive them.
In the late 1950s, however, larger cars regained popularity. The launch of the Mini in 1959 provided greater size and performance at an affordable price. This led to the decline of the popularity of the microcars and had largely ceased by the 1960s.
So what made the Mini so special that microcars largely disappeared? Well, it was small, but it was spacious inside.
And that was done by the following design features. They had put the wheels on the four corners of the car, so hardly no overhangs. No torque tube going to the back of the car, since it was front-wheel drive. And above all, it had a transverse engine layout, which increased the space inside even more. So in this tiny car there was space for 4 adults.
So who created such a genius car? Well, it was a Greek god, and it wasn't me. No, Greek god was the nickname of Sir Alec Issigonis.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
Sir Alec Issigonis, who was born in the Ottoman Empire, had a German mother but had Greek ancestors, was the brain behind the Mini. The Mini was sold in a single generation during 6 decades, but in the year 2000 it came all to an end. But every end is a new beginning.
2, 3. Let's go.
name is Cor and welcome to my channel, Driving with Gloves. I always drive with driving gloves. Your question might be, why does he drive with gloves? And my answer is, why not?
Although typically British, the original Mini was designed by a Greek with a German mother. And if that was not enough, the Germans bought Mini in 1994. Well, they actually bought the whole Rover group. BMW was the buyer, and they needed urgently a city car because they knew that Mercedes-Benz would launch the smart car in 1998. So BMW showed in 1997 two different studies. The Mini Spiritual, which was the Rover proposal, but they also showed the design study Mini ACV 30 by the Dutch designer Adriaan van Hooijdonk, who is nowadays BMW's group design director, and Frank Stephenson, who was born in Morocco, has a Norwegian father and a Spanish mother. And it was finally the design of Frank Stephenson which was chosen, which we know now as the R50, but was first called the Mini Hatch. And I think that everyone knows by now the story of the forgotten exhaust end when the board of directors wanted to see the model, so a tin can was put into the clay model.
So the Mini, known as purely British, was actually very international, and the new Mini was even more international because it was launched by the German BMW group. It was designed by a person born in Morocco with a Scandinavian last name and an American nationality. It was built in England with a Brazilian heart.
Yes, you heard it right. The Mini was launched with an engine from Brazil, the so-called Tritec engine. Tritec stands for the union of three countries involved in producing the new Mini:
Germany, the UK and Brazil. Before I open the bonnet, I want to point out that this air duct is completely functional and not only a design feature like in the later cars. And this is the award-winning Tritec engine, and it runs completely perfect even after more than 200,000 kilometers. The Tritec engine was an engine with a single overhead cam, 16-valve head and electronic throttle control. There were three versions: the 1.4 litre with 75 PS and 122 Nm in the Mini 1 for Portugal and Greece, the 1.6 litre in the Mini 1 90 PS, 140 Nm, and in the Cooper 116 PS with 149 Nm of torque, and the supercharged version with 1.6 litre with 170 PS with 220 Nm of torque with an Eaton M45 supercharger with intercooler in the Cooper S. The supercharged engine won the International Engine of the Year Awards for 2003, and it also won the Ward's 10 Best Engines Award for 2003. Further, there was from 2006 the John Cooper Works GP kit for the Cooper S with 218 PS and 215 Nm of torque. Although the Tritec Cooper S engine won awards, BMW was not so pleased at all and described the Tritec engine as old-fashioned and not very effective on function, performance and fuel efficiency. The Rover engineers wanted, of course, the Rover K-Series engine, which had a greater specific power output, better fuel efficiency and had already amortized its R&D.
Further was it built next door to the Mini factory in the UK and not in Brazil.
And since the weather is getting better, let's open the top.
The Mini has an amazing roof mechanism. You can open and close the first part like a sliding sunroof or a so-called Webasto ragtop, even at speeds over 100 km an hour. The second stage is the opening of the complete convertible top. Even closed, the roof does not make a lot of noise and withstand even the heaviest rainfalls. Although I'm normally not very pleased about front-wheel drive cars, I must admit that this Mini is an exception on the rule. It seems to be glued to the road. Well, it seems to be glued to the road surface in the bend. Fortunately not when it comes to acceleration. Since it has only 170 PS, it is not outrageously quick, but quick enough for public roads. It could have had better brakes though, because the glue does not seem to work that good in reducing the speed several times after each other on a mountain road like this.
And look how small the brakes are. If this car would have had bigger brakes, it would be amazingly good. So who said that it was only a hairdresser's car?
Although I do not particularly like front-wheel drive cars, the Mini R52 won me over with its handling, although you shouldn't push the throttle too hard in a hairpin bend, because then you will sense immediately negative effects of torque steer. Another thing I do not like is its sound. The whining sound of the supercharger is not what I call music to your ears, like in a V8. But let's face it, although I adore the looks of a Dino 206 GT, I do not like its sound either.
What I do like though is the interior of the car. It really looks good, although it's only plastic. And another thing I like is that this is the only car where you can light the sky.
Because when you open the bonnet by night, the headlights will light the sky. And also the interior light design looks very good. Did you notice what just drove by? Perhaps not, so let's do it in slow motion. A wonderful mountain road like the Sustenpass attracts very special cars. The Mini R52 is not so special as the Pagani and Lamborghini we saw before, but it is still a joy to drive with this car on such a mountain road. And it is even fast enough to humiliate motorcycles. And what about the looks of the Mini? Well, it is not as beautiful as the Pagani Huayra we saw before, but it still looks good. But let's have a look how the Mini has changed through the different generations. On the right you see the original Mini, which you could compare with a slim, good-looking girl in a mini skirt. Next to it there is the generation R50 till R53. It has the jaw of a bulldog, but it looks like this sexy, curvy girl in a miniskirt. The R55 till R61 is still acceptable, but it is on the edge. About the F54 till F60, I really don't know what to say. Well, the only thing I could say is sorry Sir Alec Issigonis and sorry Frank Stefansson, they ruined your design. So let's have fun with the R52.